Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I'm going to have a little bit of a different video. Not a mail day, not a box break. Just a video about collecting and sort of some recent activity of mine. So I want to talk about the habit of buying cards and comics or just buying collectibles. And, the idea, I know there's been videos where people talked about they have this, addiction or they can't stop buying. But I want to get a little deeper than that. I want to talk about, when I notice myself, buying too much or, going above, what I set, for budgets or things like that is, when things are tough, when I'm sad. I don't know if it's depressed or, anything that clinical, but, I do notice that when, I'm at work, things are tough, I do look for my hobbies to relieve stress. But I do notice that, how I spend is really different when there's times when I'm really, not having a lot of fun. And, there's usually some things that are very common. First is when I'm traveling. So I was just in Chile and then I compounded the traveling. So I'm, not with family, not really with friends, and really, stressful environment for work. And, so I noticed like during that time period, I was buying more than I normally would. Compound it with the fact that, I've been struggling with, weight control, and I was, I'm on a specific diet, and when I was in Chile, I kind of blew that really badly. So I was feeling really bad about, what I was eating, how much I was eating, which I can, control, but it's, there's that social aspect of eating that kind of makes it harder sometimes, especially when you're on a work trip with, people who want to take you out and show you a good time sometimes. And there is social pressure there, right? And I felt that. And so I would relieve that stress by buying, sports cards, comic books. And so, there is clinically, or there is studies like from the NIH, the National Institute of Health, that does talk about the amount of money that people will spend is related sometimes to, sadness. And they call it about, like self-focus or, there is, research that says that, people who are sad increases the amount of money we're willing to give up to acquire, things. So what that means is it's not just like about hoarding. So I want to make a big distinction that this isn't about just buying a lot of stuff. This is where you'll pay more to acquire the things than you normally would. And that's sort of what I see myself doing. I don't see myself, and I say I spend more, or I'm buying more things. What I'm saying is like I'm buying more things because I'm willing to spend more. Where normally I would be okay with losing an auction or losing something because it went above, my targeted value or my budget. But, I notice when, I'm not feeling great about myself or I'm stressed that I'm willing to go more and it's like that little bit of thrill, right? That little bit of happiness because you win. That is sort of the, like the reason, I'm doing that, I'm pretty sure. There's also studies that talk about, the benefits, mental health of collecting, right? And, it talks about, the mental health benefits of collecting, right? So there's this fine line, I think, that we have to kind of draw, about holding yourself accountable versus kind of self-medicating or having healing through hobbies. And I think it's a tough thing to really balance because there are times when, I feel like an urge to like, hey, let's open up Whatnot, eBay, and see what's out there, and make an impulse decision because I had a bad day at work, or there's some stressful things going on, and you know you have to kind of resist that sometimes, especially if you're not comfortable with the amount that you might be spending, or just knowing that you're not keeping yourself within normal limits for yourself. On like an app like Whatnot, where people will way overspend on an item, and you can get it on a buy it now on eBay for like half the price, but they get into a room, they get people cheering them on, you get people really excited that you're spending money in the room, and the people in the room that own the room are very excited, and it's like the thrill, and you feel great for that moment. And then when you realize, oh, I paid double, triple what that item was worth, it goes back to that feeling sad moment as you realize you probably made a bad decision, right? So I'm trying to understand myself, and understand how when I feel bad, when I don't feel like things are going well, that I shouldn't just go spend a lot on collectibles just because that makes me feel a little bit better. It's not probably the best solution. And I think that's the thing is like, in this hobby, I think a lot of people are in it to create some sort of connection, right? And that's what I've talked about on my channel a lot, is connecting. Now, what I also find true in this hobby is that real emotional connection in the hobby is very, very difficult. I don't, I call hobby friends are not real friends. I've said that a few times. So I think there is this idea in the hobby, like, we all kind of like want it to be, this nice, world where everyone gets along and there's an ecosystem and everyone is there for good reasons. But, I've seen a lot of things where I know people treat you nicely because they either want you to buy from them, or they want to buy something from you cheaper, or it's like, I call it like fakeness in the hobby. And, when you're around it a lot, it's not great either. So, I think that is something too, is that the hobby itself sometimes makes me feel sad, or makes me feel like, it's not, it's not real. It's like a fake world. You go into it, go to a card show, you go somewhere, and the people there aren't as genuine as you would hope. And, and I call it like the difference between having a real friend and having a friend you see, once or twice a year or on the weekends, and it's like, trying to have a real connection there is hard. And I think that is something that you can't buy, and you can't really spend your way into it. And I think collecting has to not try to substitute real human connections, or family, or things that really matter. And if you're trying to replace those things with collecting, or trying to decrease your amount of sadness that way, I think it's not going to work. And I think that is something that we can all agree to help each other on, in the sense that if you see someone that you think is maybe struggling that way, maybe it's better, instead of trying to sell them something or trying to like cheer them up with collectibles, or to talk about collectibles, maybe have a real conversation with someone. I think that, in the hobby, maybe what we should do more often is just get to know each other a little better and talk to each other like people, versus as kind of like in this fake world of collectibles where, having cool cards pitch you, like high school, where you rank each other based on, your collection. I think, sometimes that's not probably great for, mental health sometimes. So that's it. That's just what I want to talk about a little bit. And just see if other people kind of have the same thoughts or feelings, and notice their own spending behavior. Does it go up or down when you don't feel very good, or when there's things about your personal life that aren't going quite as good, and you use it as a way for diversion, or to try to make yourself feel better. So that's it. That's what I want to talk about today. And hopefully you guys comment and give me some feedback, and we'll talk to you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye.